G'day folks, Dr. Liam Cartwright here. I've been working as a urologist in Sydney for over 30 years now, and in that time, I reckon I've had just about every conversation you can imagine with blokes about their health. But there's one topic that still makes grown men squirm in their seats, and mate, it's the one we need to talk about most. Because what I'm about to tell you might just save your life, or at the very least, make your golden years a hell of a lot better than they would have been otherwise. You might have noticed something's changed as you've gotten older. Maybe you don't think about intimacy the way you used to. Maybe it's been weeks, months, or even years since you've had a moment to yourself, if you know what I mean, and you probably thought, well, that's just getting older, isn't it? But here's the thing, and I need you to really hear this. When you stop having regular ejaculations, whether with a partner or on your own, your body starts shutting down systems you actually need, and you probably haven't even noticed it happening. This isn't some touchy-feely nonsense or an old wives' tale. This is clinical, physiological reality. The consequences of ignoring this truth can be devastating, not just for your sexual health, but for your brain, your heart, your sleep, your immune system, and even your sense of self-worth. I'm deadly serious about this. Now, before you click away thinking this isn't for you or that you're too old for this conversation, let me tell you about a patient I saw a few years back. I'll call him Robert. He was 69 years old, came into my office looking absolutely defeated. His wife had passed away 3 years earlier, and he told me he just didn't see the point anymore. Not just with intimacy, but with a lot of things. He was having trouble sleeping, couldn't focus, felt disconnected from his mates, and his energy was in the toilet. When I asked him about his sexual health, he looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "Doc," he said, "I'm pushing 70. That ship sailed, hasn't it?" I told him what I'm about to tell you. That ship hasn't sailed. It's just sitting in the harbor waiting for you to climb aboard. If you're still with me and these thoughts resonate with you, drop a comment down below. Just put a number 1. I want to know. I'm not talking to myself here. Right, let's get into the science of what's actually happening when you stop engaging in regular sexual activity. First up, and this is the big one for us blokes, prostate health. There's a study from Harvard, proper research mind you, that found men who ejaculate 21 times per month have a 5% lower risk of prostate cancer compared to those who do it less frequently. Now, I know what you're thinking. 21 times? Bloody hell, doc, I'm not 21 anymore. And fair enough. We'll talk about realistic numbers in a bit. But the point is, regular ejaculation is like a maintenance program for your prostate. Think of it this way. Your prostate is constantly producing fluid. When you don't ejaculate regularly, that fluid just sits there, gets stagnant. It's like leaving water in a container for months on end. The pressure builds up, things get congested, and you're creating an environment where problems can develop. Regular ejaculation flushes out the system, reduces inflammation, and keeps everything running smoothly. It's preventative maintenance, just like changing the oil in your ute. But it's not just about your prostate. When you ejaculate, your body releases a whole cocktail of hormones and neurochemicals. Dopamine, oxytocin, endorphins, prolactin. These aren't just feel-good chemicals, though they certainly do make you feel good. They're essential for your mental health, your stress levels, and your overall well-being. Dopamine, for instance, is your brain's reward chemical. It's what makes you feel motivated, alive, engaged with the world. As we get older, our dopamine levels naturally decline. But sexual activity, including masturbation, gives you a natural boost. Without it, you're missing out on one of the easiest ways to keep your brain healthy and engaged. Oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, reduces stress and anxiety. It lowers your cortisol levels, which is your body's main stress hormone. Now, I know life doesn't get less stressful as you age. Retirement, health concerns, losing mates, dealing with family stuff. If you're carrying all that stress and anxiety around, and you've cut out one of your body's natural stress relief mechanisms, is it any wonder you feel overwhelmed? Here's something most blokes don't realize. Sexual activity, even solo, is actually good for your heart. I'm not talking about the cardio workout, though that's a bonus. I'm talking about the physiological benefits. During arousal and ejaculation, your blood vessels dilate, your circulation improves, and your heart rate increases in a healthy way. Regular sexual activity has been linked to lower blood pressure and reduced risk of cardiovascular disease. It's like taking your heart to the gym, but a lot more enjoyable. And then there's sleep. How many of you lie awake at night, mind racing, unable to switch off? After ejaculation, your body releases prolactin, which is basically nature's sleeping pill. It makes you feel relaxed, satisfied, and ready for rest. If you're struggling with insomnia and you've cut sexual activity out of your life, you're fighting with one hand tied behind your back. Let me tell you what happened with Robert, the patient I mentioned earlier. After our chat, he was skeptical, but he agreed to give it a go. He started engaging in self-stimulation a few times a week. Nothing crazy, just when he felt like it. 6 weeks later, he came back for a follow-up appointment, and I barely recognized him. He looked 10 years younger. His energy was back, he was sleeping through the night, and he'd even started going to the pub quiz with his mates again. He told me, "Doc, I didn't realize how much I'd lost until I got it back." Now, I reckon some of you are sitting there thinking, "But Doc, I don't have the urge anymore. My testosterone's dropped, my libido's gone. It feels like that part of me has just switched off." And mate, I hear you. That's one of the most common things I hear in my practice. Blokes in their 70s, 80s, even 90s, telling me they just don't feel that spark anymore. Here's the thing. Yes, your testosterone levels decline as you age. That's biology. But here's what most people don't understand. You don't need to feel overwhelming desire to engage in sexual activity. In fact, sometimes it works the other way around. You engage in the activity and the desire follows. It's like going for a walk when you're feeling sluggish. You might not want to do it at first, but once you're out there moving your body, you feel better. The benefits I've been talking about, the prostate health, the hormone release, the cardiovascular benefits, the better sleep, they don't require you to be raging with desire. They happen regardless. So even if you're not feeling particularly randy, there's still enormous value in maintaining some level of sexual activity. Think of it as preventative medicine, like taking your daily vitamins or going for your morning walk. But let's be practical here. I mentioned that Harvard study about 21 times a month, and I saw some of your eyes nearly pop out of your heads. Look, that's an average from a study. It's not a prescription. For some blokes, that might be doable. For others, it might be once a week or a few times a month. The key point is, some is better than none. Much better. What I generally recommend to my patients is this. Aim for at least once or twice a week if you can manage it. That's enough to keep the systems running, to maintain prostate health, to get those hormonal benefits. But here's the crucial bit. Don't turn it into a chore. Don't put pressure on yourself. This should be something that feels good, not something you're ticking off a to-do list. Some of you might be thinking, "But Doc, what if I've had prostate surgery? What if my equipment's not working like it used to?" These are bloody good questions, and I'm glad you're asking. If you've had your prostate removed, you can still benefit from stimulation and attempting ejaculation, even if nothing comes out. The nervous system activation, the hormone release, the psychological benefits, they're all still there. Your body still goes through the motions, and that's what matters. If you're having erectile difficulties, that doesn't disqualify you either. You don't need a full erection to engage in self-stimulation or to achieve orgasm. I've had patients who've learned new techniques, explored different kinds of touch, and discovered that there's more to sexual pleasure than they'd previously thought. And if you're really struggling, that's what medications like Viagra are for. There's no shame in getting a bit of help. Now, here's something important I need to address, because it came up in the comments on similar videos I've done. What about your partner? What if you're in a relationship? Look, if you've got a willing partner and you're able to engage in partnered sex, that's fantastic. That's actually the gold standard, because you get all the physical benefits plus the emotional intimacy, the connection, the bonding. But the reality is, not everyone has that option. Maybe you're widowed. Maybe your partner's not interested or isn't able to anymore. Maybe you're dealing with health issues that make partnered sex difficult. And here's the thing, even if you do have a partner, solo sex still has its place. It's not a replacement for intimacy with another person, but it's not a poor substitute either. It's a different thing entirely, and it has its own benefits. You're learning about your own body, you're taking responsibility for your own pleasure and health, and you're not putting pressure on your partner to meet all your needs. Speaking of partners, I want to say something about the ladies, because I know a lot of you are married or in relationships, and you might be wondering if any of this applies to your wives or partners. The short answer is absolutely. Women benefit from regular sexual activity just as much as men do. It improves circulation, maintains vaginal health, supports hormonal balance, reduces stress, improves sleep, all of it. Post-menopause, when estrogen levels drop, regular sexual activity becomes even more important for maintaining tissue health and function. So if your partner's interested, this could be a conversation worth having, not in a pressuring way, but in a, hey, I learned something interesting about health and aging way. Who knows, it might open up a dialogue you haven't had in years. Right, let's talk about some practical stuff. How do you actually go about this, especially if it's been a while? First thing, privacy and comfort. Make sure you've got time and space where you won't be interrupted. Lock the door if you need to. Put on some music if that helps you relax. This isn't something to rush through or feel guilty about. Second, take your time. When you're younger, things might have happened pretty quickly. As you age, it might take longer to get aroused, and that's completely normal. Don't fight it. Enjoy the process. Explore what feels good. This isn't a race. Third, consider using a bit of lubricant. As we age, natural lubrication can decrease, and nobody needs friction burns on their bits. You can pick up a good water-based lubricant from any chemist, no worries. Fourth, if you're having trouble with arousal, it's okay to use visual aids or your imagination, whatever works for you. There's no right or wrong here, as long as everything's legal and ethical. Fifth, don't compare yourself to your younger self or to anyone else. Your body's different now, and that's fine. The goal isn't to perform like you're 25 again. The goal is to maintain your health and well-being in a way that works for you now. Now, let's talk about the mental side of this, because that's just as important as the physical. A lot of blokes carry around shame or embarrassment about masturbation, especially at an older age. You might have grown up in a time when this wasn't talked about, when it was considered shameful or sinful, or just not something decent people did. And that baggage can be hard to shake. But here's what I want you to understand. There is nothing shameful about taking care of your health. Nothing. You wouldn't feel ashamed about taking medication for your blood pressure or doing exercises for your back. This is no different. It's health maintenance, pure and simple. And beyond the physical health, there's your mental and emotional well-being to consider. Sexuality is part of being human. It's part of feeling alive, connected to your body, engaged with life. When you shut that part of yourself down, you lose something important. You lose a sense of vitality, of pleasure, of connection to yourself. I've had patients tell me they felt like they'd become invisible as they aged, like the world stopped seeing them as sexual beings, and they'd internalized that. They'd started seeing themselves that way too. But when they reconnected with their sexuality, even in this simple way, something shifted. They felt more present, more themselves, more alive. One patient, I'll call him Graham, was 82 when I had this conversation with him. He'd been celibate for nearly a decade after his wife passed. He came in because he was having urinary issues, and when we got talking, it became clear he'd completely shut down that part of his life. After our chat, he was hesitant, but curious. A few months later, he sent me a letter. He said he felt like he'd woken up from a long sleep. He'd started feeling more energetic, more interested in things, more like himself. And his urinary symptoms had improved as well, which was a bonus. That's the thing about sexual health. It's connected to everything else. Your physical health, your mental health, your emotional well-being, your sense of self. You can't compartmentalize it and expect the rest of you to function optimally. Now, I want to address something for those of you who've been through significant health challenges. Maybe you've had a heart attack, or you've had prostate surgery, or you're dealing with diabetes or other conditions that affect sexual function. You might be thinking, this doesn't apply to me anymore. That ship really has sailed. But unless your doctor has specifically told you to avoid sexual activity for medical reasons, the principles I'm talking about still apply. In fact, they might be even more important. If you're dealing with chronic health conditions, you need all the help you can get with stress management, sleep quality, cardiovascular health, and immune function. Sexual activity provides all of that. If you're worried, talk to your GP or your specialist. Ask them specifically, is there any medical reason I shouldn't engage in sexual activity? In most cases, the answer will be no. And if there are concerns, they can work with you to find solutions, whether that's medications, different techniques, or other approaches. One thing I've noticed in my 3 decades of practice is that the blokes who maintain some level of sexual activity as they age tend to be healthier overall. They're more engaged, more vital, more interested in life. Is that because sexual activity makes them healthier, or because healthier people are more likely to maintain sexual activity? Probably a bit of both. But why not stack the deck in your favor? Look, I'm not going to stand here and tell you that masturbation is going to cure all your problems or turn back the clock on aging. It won't. But it is one tool in your toolkit for maintaining your health, your vitality, and your quality of life as you age. And it's a tool that costs nothing, has no negative side effects when done responsibly, and can genuinely make a difference. Think about it this way. You probably do other things for your health that aren't particularly exciting. You take medications, you watch your diet, you try to exercise. Some of you might even eat that awful brand cereal every morning. You do these things because you know they're good for you, even if they're not especially fun. Well, here's something that's good for you and enjoyable. Why wouldn't you take advantage of that? I want to come back to something I mentioned earlier about desire, because I reckon it's important. A lot of you might be thinking, but doc, I just don't feel interested anymore. I don't wake up thinking about sex like I used to. It doesn't even cross my mind most days. And that's fair enough. But here's a question. Do you wake up every morning desperate to go for a walk? Or do you do it because you know it's good for you? Do you feel overwhelming desire to take your blood pressure medication? Or do you do it because it's maintaining your health? Sexual activity can be the same. You can approach it as a health practice, as self-care, rather than waiting for spontaneous desire to strike. And here's the beautiful thing. Often, once you start, the desire does show up. It's like your body remembers, oh yeah, this feels good. This is nice. You don't need burning passion to begin. You just need willingness to try. For those of you who are living alone, who don't have partners, I want you to know that you're not missing out on something essential by engaging in solo sex rather than partnered sex. Yes, intimacy with another person is wonderful and valuable. But your own sexuality, your own pleasure, your own connection to your body, that's valuable too. You're not a lesser version of yourself because you're flying solo. You're still a complete, whole person, and your sexual health still matters. Right, let's wrap this up because I reckon I've given you plenty to think about. The key takeaways are these. Regular ejaculation, whether with a partner or solo, is genuinely important for your health, especially as you age. It supports prostate health, cardiovascular health, mental health, sleep quality, and overall well-being. The hormones and neurochemicals released during sexual activity aren't luxuries. They're essential for optimal functioning. Even if you don't feel desire the way you used to, there's still enormous value in maintaining some level of sexual activity. Approach it as health maintenance if that helps. Aim for what's comfortable for you, whether that's once a week or a few times a month. Some is definitely better than none. Don't let shame, embarrassment, or outdated ideas prevent you from taking care of yourself. Your sexual health is part of your overall health, full stop. If you're having difficulties, whether physical or psychological, talk to your doctor. There are solutions available, and there's no reason to suffer in silence. And finally, you're not too old for this. I don't care if you're 70, 80, 90, or beyond. Your sexuality is part of being human, and it doesn't have an expiration date. The blokes who embrace this tend to be healthier, happier, and more engaged with life. So there you have it, folks. Not the conversation you probably expected to have today, but hopefully one that's given you something to think about. If this video's been helpful, give it a like, share it with a mate who might benefit, and leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your questions, your experiences. We're all in this together, and the more we talk openly about these things, the better off we'll all be. Take care of yourselves, guys. Your health matters, all aspects of it. Cheers.